They were worshipped as gods, yet they could not save their own empire. For over 3,000 years, ancient Egypt stood as one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. Its pharaohs ruled absolutely commanding armies, wealth, religion, and even the Nile itself. But then, Egypt began to fade, not overnight, not by a single invasion. It collapsed slowly, from the inside. And by the end of this video, you lines understand the exact moment Egyptians stopped believing their rulers were gods and why that belief was the very foundation of their power. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was not just a king. He was divine, the living bridge between humans and the gods. The guarantor of the cosmic order, balance, and justice that held their world together. As long as the Nile flooded, crops grew, and enemies were defeated, the pharaoh's divine right remained unquestioned. But divine power only lasts as long as people believe in it, and over time, the cracks began to show. The system weakened, royal successions became unstable. Child pharaohs ruled in name only while powerful elites fought for real control behind the scenes. Corruption spread through the priesthood, undermining the spiritual core of the kingdom. The grand monuments of old were replaced by smaller, less impressive structures. Royal authority, once absolute, fractured. When famine struck and the life-giving Nile failed to flood, the people began to ask a dangerous question: was the pharaoh truly chosen by the gods? This questioning of divine authority spiraled into chaos. Civil wars erupted during what historians call the intermediate periods. Rival kings claimed the throne, ruling different regions simultaneously. People's loyalty shifted from the distant, divine pharaoh to local warlords and governors who could offer immediate protection and food. Egypt was no longer a single, united nation under a god-king. It was a patchwork of competing territories. And a divided Egypt was a vulnerable Egypt. That vulnerability did not go unnoticed by the powers growing beyond its borders. Up to this point, Egypt was weakening internally, consumed by its own conflicts. But what came next would permanently shatter the pharaoh's divine power and change the course of history forever. First came the Hyksos, foreign rulers from the east, who swept in, introducing new weapons like the composite bow and the horse-drawn chariot. Although they were eventually expelled, their rule proved that outsiders could seize the Egyptian throne. Later, Egypt faced relentless waves of powerful invaders, the disciplined Assyrians, the mighty Persians, and finally, the unstoppable Greeks. Each conquest chipped away at the myth of divine kingship. The people were left to wonder, if the pharaoh was a god, why could he be defeated so easily by mere mortals? The final blow came with Alexander the Great. He conquered Egypt without a fight, welcomed by a people tired of foreign oppression. After his death, his general Ptolemy founded a new dynasty. The Ptolemies ruled as Greek pharaohs. They adopted the titles and wore the crowns, but they were Egyptian in name only, not in blood or culture. The last of this line, the legendary Cleopatra VII, desperately tried to restore Egypt's independence through clever alliances and political strategy. But she failed. In the year 30 BCE, the Roman legions marched in, and Egypt was absorbed as just another province of the Roman Empire. The age of the pharaohs, after 3 millennia, was over forever. Egypt lost more than just its territory and its pharaohs. It lost its political independence. It lost its unique religious authority. As Roman gods began to merge with their own, it lost control of its economy. Rome now controlled the vast grain harvests of the Nile, the lifeblood of its own empire. Rome controlled the army, and most importantly, Rome controlled the narrative. Egypt was no longer a living, breathing power on the world stage. It became a relic, a symbol of a magnificent past, not a power of the present. So what was the real reason the pharaohs fell? Empires don't collapse just because their enemies arrive at the gates. They collapse when the core belief that holds them together disappears. The power of the pharaohs was never just about armies or wealth. It was built on a sacred idea, that their ruler was a god on earth. Once Egyptians stopped believing that their rulers were divine, the empire was already lost. The invasions and conquests that followed were merely the final symptoms of a decay that had started from within. Today, the pyramids still stand, silent sentinels in the desert. The temples still whisper of immense power and forgotten rituals, but the pharaohs are gone. And their story leaves us with a timeless question: when a leader's authority depends entirely on belief, what happens when that belief dies?